Hello, everyone. This is John Burness talking here, and it is absolutely a privilege to be embarking on this new quest, this new project, which is over the course of a period of time to perform audibly the complete works of the wonderful yet criminally underrated William Cullen Bryant. And if you're familiar with my work and my channel, I do a lot of poetry and the history of poetry, and this is someone who definitely deserves a spot on that field. He published his first poem at the age of 10, and at the age of 13 he published a book of political satire poems. A very brilliant man. Became a successful lawyer in his middle age, and then finally pursued poetry. He performed poetry his entire life, I said, at the age of 10. He was born on December 3rd, 1794, and then he passed away in 1878, which would have made him 83 years old. 83 years of extreme dedication to the wonderful yet undervalued art of poetry. And I am here to perform his entire poems incrementally. I'm going to do only about 15 or 20 at a time from his works, the complete poems of William Cullen Bryant. I will be starting with the first section of the book called The Ages. So yes, I will be doing the first 15 poems today, and I hope you find great joy or learn something or be inspired by this. And without any further disruption, I will now perform a part one of an ongoing series of performing the complete works of William Cullen Bryant. The Ages. When to the common rest that crowns our days, called in the noon of life, the good man goes, or full of years and ripe in wisdom, lays his silver temples in their last repose. When over the buds of youth the death wind blows and blights the fairest. When our bitter tears stream as the eyes of those that love us close, we think on what they were, with many fears, lest goodness die with them, and leave them coming years. Part 2. And therefore to our hearts the days gone by, when lived the honored sage whose death we wept, and the soft virtues beamed from many an eye, and beat in many a heart that long has slept, like spots of earth where angel feet have stepped, are holy, and high dreaming bards have told of times when worth was crowned and faith was kept. Ere friendship grew a snare, or love waxed cold, those pure and happy times, the golden days of old. Part 3. Peace to the just man's memory. Let it grow greener with years, and blossom through the flight of ages. Let the mimic canvas show his calm benevolent features. Let the light stream on his deeds of love, that shun the sight of all but heaven, and in the book of fame the glorious record of his virtues write, and hold it up to men, and bid them claim a palm like his, and catch from him the hallowed flame. Part 4. But oh, despair not their fate who rise to dwell upon the earth when we withdraw. Lo, the same shaft by which the righteous dies strikes through the wretch that scoffed at mercy's law, and trode his brethren down, and felt no awe. Of him will avenge them, stainless worth, such as the sternest age of virtue saw, ripens meanwhile, till time shall call it forth, from the low modest shade to light and bless the earth. Part 5. Has nature in her calm majestic march faltered with age at last? Does the bright sun grow dim in heaven? Or, in their far blue arch, sparkle the crowd of stars? When the day is done less brightly, when the dew-dipped spring comes on, breathes she with air less soft, or scents the sky with flowers less fair than when her reign begun? Does prodigal autumn, to our age, deny the plenty that once swelled beneath his sober eye? Part 6. Look on this beautiful world, and read the truth in her fair page. See, every season brings new change, to her of everlasting youth. Still the green soil, with joyous living things, swarms, the wide air is full of joyous wings, and myriads still are happy in the sleep of ocean's azure gulfs, and where he flings the restless surge, eternal love doth keep in his complacent arms the earth, the air, the deep. Part 7. When then the merciful one, who stamped our race with his own image, and who gave them sway over earth and the glad dwellers on her face, now that our swarming nations far away are spread, wherever the moist earth drinks the day, forget the ancient care that taught us and nursed his last offspring? Will he quench the ray infused by his own forming smile at first, and leave a work so fair all blighted and accursed? Part 8. Oh no! 1,000 cheerful omens give hope of yet happier days, whose dawn is nigh. He who has tamed the elements shall not live, the slave of his own passions, he whose eye unwinds the eternal dances of the sky, and in the abyss of brightness dares to span the sun's broad circle, rising yet more high. In God's magnificent works his will shall scan, and love and peace shall make their paradise with man. Sit at the feet of history. Part 9, excuse me. Sit at the feet of history, through the night of years the steps of virtue she shall trace, and show the earlier ages, where her sight can pierce the eternal shadows over their face. When from the genial crave of our race went forth the tribes of men, their pleasant lot to choose, where palm groves cooled their dwelling place, where freshening rivers ran, and there forgot the truth of heaven, and kneeled to gods that heard them not. Part 10. Then waited not the murderer for the night, but smote his brother down in the bright day, and he who felt the wrong and had the might, his own avenger, gift himself to slay. Beside the path that unburied carcass lay, the shepherd, by the fountains of the glen, fled, while the robber swept his flock away, and slew his babes, the sick, untended then, languished in the damp shade, and died afar from men. Number 11. But misery brought in love, in passion strife, man gave his heart to mercy, pleading long, and sought out gentle deeds to gladden life. The weak against the sons of spoil and wrong banded and watched their hamlets and grew strong. States rose, and in the shadow of their might, the timid rested to the reverent throng. Grave and time-wrinkled men, with locks all white, gave laws and judged their strifes, and taught the way of right. Number 12. Till bolder spirits seized the rule, and nailed on men the yoke that man should never bear, and drave them forth to battle. Unveiled the scene of those stern ages. What is there? A boundless sea of blood, and the wild air moans with the crimson surges that entomb. Cities and bannered armies form that wear. The kingly circlet rise amid the gloom, over the dark wave, and straight are swallowed in its womb. Number 13. Those ages have no memory, but they left a record in the desert, columns strewn on the waste sands, and statues fallen and cleft, heaped like a host in battle overthrown, vast ruins were the mountains' ribs of stone. Where hewn into a city, streets that spread, in the dark earth, where never breath has blown, of heaven's sweet air, nor foot of man dares tread, the long and perilous ways, the city of the dead. Number 14. And tombs of monarchs to the clouds uppiled, they perished, but the eternal tombs remain, and the black precipice, abrupt and wild, pierced by long toil and hollow to a fane, huge pairs and frowning forms of God sustain, the everlasting arches, dark and wide, like the night heaven when clouds are black with rain, but idly skill was tasked and strength was plied. All was the work of slaves to swell a despot's pride. Number 15. And virtue cannot dwell with slaves, nor reign over those who cower to take a tyrant's yoke. Since she left the downtrodden nations to disdain, and flew to Greece when liberty awoke, newborn amid those glorious vales, and broke scepter and chain with her fair youthful hands, as rocks are shivered in the thunder stroke, and lo, in full-grown strength, an empire stands of leagued and rival states, the wonder of the lands. Number 16. O Greece, the flourishing cities were a spoil unto each other, thy hard hand oppressed, and crushed the helpless, thou didst make thy soil. Drunk with the blood of those that loved thee best, and thou didst drive from thy unnatural breast, thy just and brave to die in distant times. Earth shuddered at thy deeds, and sighed for rest from thine abominations after times. That yet shall read thy tale, will tremble at thy crimes. Number 17. Yet there was that within thee which has saved thy glory, and redeemed thy blotted name, the story of thy better deeds engraved on fame's unmouldering pillar puts to shame our chiller virtue, the high art to tame. The whirlwind of the passions was thy own, and the pure ray that from thy bosom came, far over many a land and age has shone, and mingles with the light that beams from God's own throne. Number 18. And Rome, thy sterner, younger sister, she who awed the world with her imperial frown, Rome drew the spirit of her race from thee, the rival of thy shame and thy renown, yet her degenerate children sold the crown of earth's wild kingdoms to a line of slaves, Guilt reigned, and woe with guilt, and plagues came down, till the north broke its floodgates, and the waves whelmed the degraded race, and weltered over their graves. Number 19. Vainly, that ray of brightness from above, that shone around the Galilean lake, the light of hope, the leading star of love, struggled the darkness of that day to break. Even its own faithless guardians strove to slake. In fogs of earth, the pure eternal flame, and priestly hands, for Jesus' blessed sake, were red with blood, and charity became, in that stern war of forms, a mockery and a name. Number 20. They triumphed, and less bloody rites were kept within the quiet of the convent cell. The well-fed inmates pattered prayer and slept and sinned, and liked their easy penance well, where pleasant was the spot for men to dwell. Amid its fair broad lands the abbey lay, sheltering dark orgies that were shame to tell, and cowled and barefoot beggars swarmed the way, all in their convent weeds of black and white and gray. Number 21. Oh, sweetly the returning muses' strain swelled over that famed stream whose gentle tide in their bright lap the Etrurian vales detain. Sweet, as when winter storms have ceased to chide, in all the new-leaved woods resounding wide. Send out wild hymns upon the scented air. Lo, to the smiling Arno's classic side, the emulous nations of the West repair, and kindle their quenched urns, and drink fresh spirits there. Number 22. Still, heaven deferred the hour ordained to rend from saintly rottenness the sacred stole, and cowl and worship shrine could still defend. The wretch with felon stains upon his soul, and crimes were set to stale, and hard his dole. Who could not bribe a passage to the skies, and vice, beneath the mitres' kind control, sinned gaily on, and grew to giant size, shielded by priestly power, and watched by priestly eyes. Number 23. At last, the earthquake came, the shock that hurled to dust, in many fragments dashed and strown, the throne whose roots were in another world, and whose far-stretching shadow awed our own. From many a proud monastic pile overthrown, fear struck, the hooded inmates rushed and fled. The web that for 1,000 years had grown over prostrate Europe, in that day of dread crumbled and fell, as fire dissolves the flaxen thread. Number 24. The spirit of that day is still awake, and spreads himself, and shall not sleep again, but through the idle mesh of power shall break, like billows over the Asian monarch's chain, till men are filled with him, and feel how vain, instead of the pure heart and innocent hands, are all the proud and pompous modes to gain the smile of heaven, till a new age expands its white and holy wings above the peaceful lands. 25. For look again on the past years. Behold, how like the nightmare's dreams have flown away horrible forms of worship that, of old, held over the shuddering realms unquestioned sway. See crimes that fear not once the eye of day, rooted from men without a name or place. The nations blotted out from earth to pay the forfeit of deep guilt with glad embrace. The fair, disburdened lands welcome a nobler race. Number 26. Thus error's monstrous shapes from earth are driven. They fade, they fly, but truth survives their flight. Earth has no shades to quench the beam of heaven. Each ray that shone in early time to light the faltering footstep in the path of right. Each gleam the clearer brightness shed to aid, and man's maturer day his bolder sight, all blended like the rainbow's radiant braid. Pour yet, and still shall pour, the blaze that cannot fade. Number 27. Late from this western shore, that morning chased the deep and ancient night, which threw its shroud over the green land of groves, the beautiful waste, nurse of full streams, and lifter up of proud, sky-mingling mountains that overlook the cloud. Erewhile, where you gay spires their brightness rear, trees waved, and the brown hunter's shouts were loud amidst the forest, and the bounding deer fled at the glancing plume, and the gaunt wolf yelled near. Number 28. And where his willing waves, you bright blue bay, sends up to kiss his decorated brim, and cradles in his soft embrace the gay young group of grassy islands born of him, and crowding night, nor in the distance dim, lifts the white throng of sails that bear or bring the commerce of the world with tawny limb, and belt and beads in sunlight glistening, the savage urged his skiff like wild bird on the wing. Number 29. Then all this youthful paradise around, and all the broad and boundless mainland, laid cooled by the interminable wood that frowned over mountain vale, where never summer ray glanced till the strong tornado broke his way through the grey giants of the sylvan wild, yet many a sheltered glade with blossoms grey, beneath the showery sky and sunshine mild, within the shaggy arms of that dark forest smiled. Number 30. There stood the Indian hamlet, where the lake spread its blue sheet that flashed with many an oar, where the brown otter plunged him from the brake, and the deer drank as the light gale flew over. The twinkling mazed field rustled on the shore, and while that spot so wild and lone and fair a look of glad and guiltless beauty wore, and peace was on earth and in the air, the warrior lit the pile and bound his captive there. Number 31. Not unavenged, but foeman from the wood beheld the deed, and, when the midnight shade was stillest, gorged his battle-axe with blood. All died, the wailing babe, the shrinking maid, and, in the flood of fire that scathed the glade, the roofs went down, but deep the silence grew, when on the dewy woods the daybeam played. No more the cabin smokes rose, wreathed in blue, and ever by their lake lay moored the bark canoe. Number 32. Look now abroad, another race has filled these populous borders, wide the wood recedes, and towns shot up, and fertile realms are tilled. The land is full of harvest and green meads, streams numberless that many a fountain feeds, shine disembowered and give the sun and breeze their virgin waters, the full region leads. New colonies forth that towered the western seas, spread like a rapid flame among the autumnal trees. Number 33. Here is the free spirit of mankind, at length throws its last fetters off, and who shall place a limit on the giant's unchained strength, or curb his swiftness in the forward race? On, like the comet's way through infinite space, stretches the long unraveled path to light, into the depths of ages we may trace. Afar, the brightening glory of its flight, till the receding rays are lost to human sight. Number 34. Europe is given a prey to sterner fates, and writhes in shackles, strong the arms that chain to earth her struggling multitude of states. She too is strong, and might not chafe in vain against them, but might not cast to earth the train that trample her, and break their iron net. Yes, she shall look on brighter days and gain the meed of worthier deeds. The moment set to rescue and raise up draws near, but is not yet. Number 35. Number 35. But thou, my country, thou shalt never fall, save with thy children, thy maternal care, thy lavish love, thy blessings showered on all. These are thy fetters, seas and stormy air, are the wide barrier of thy borders where, among thy gallant sons who guard thee well, thou laughs at enemies, who shall then declare the date of thy deep-founded strength, or tell how happy in thy lap the sons of men shall dwell. So that was all one poem called The Ages. And I believe the rest of the poems we're looking at are significantly shorter. All right. Thanatopsis. To him who in the love of nature holds communion with her visible form she speaks, a various language for his gayer hours. She has a voice of gladness, and a smile and eloquence of beauty, and she glides into darker musings with a mild and healing sympathy that steals away their sharpness ere he is aware. When thoughts of the last bitter hour come like a blight over thy spirit in sad images of the stern agony and shroud and pale and breathless darkness and the narrow house, make thee to shudder and grow sick at heart. Go forth under the open sky and list to nature's teachings, while from all around earth and her waters are the depths of air. Comes a still voice, yet a few days, and thee the all-beholding sun shall see no more. In all his course, nor yet in the cold ground where thy pale form was laid with many tears, nor in the embrace of ocean shall exist thy image. Earth that nourished thee shall claim thy growth, to be resolved to earth again. And, lost each human trace, surrendering up thine individual being, shall thou go to mix forever with the elements, to be a brother to the insensible rock, and the sluggish clod, which the rude swain turns with his share, and treads upon the oak, shall send his roots abroad, and pierce thy mould. Yet not thine eternal resting place shall thou retire alone, nor couldst thou wish couch more magnificent. Thou shalt lie down with patriarchs of the infant world, with kings, the powerful of the earth, the wise, the good, fair forms, and hoary seers of ages past, all in one mighty sepulchre. The hills rock-ribbed and ancient as the sun, the vale stretching in pensive quietness between, the venerable woods, rivers that move in majesty, and the complaining brooks that make the meadows green, and poured around all old ocean's gray and melancholy waste, are but the solemn decorations, all of the great tomb of man, the golden sun, the planets, all the infinite host of heaven, and shining on the sad abodes of death. Through the still lapse of ages, all that tread the globe are but a handful to the tribes that slumber in its bosom. Take the wings of morning, pierce the barken wilderness, or lose thyself in the continuous woods, where rolls the Oregon, and hears no sound, save his own dashings, yet the dead are there, and millions in those solitudes, since first the flight of years began, have laid them down in their last sleep, and dead reign there alone. So shalt thou rest. And what if thou withdraw in silence from the living, and no friend take note of thy departure? All that breathe will share thy destiny, the gay will laugh. The Yellow Violet. When thou art gone, the solemn brood of care plod on, and each one as before will chase his favorite phantom. Yet all these shall leave their mirth and their employments, and shall come and make their bed with thee. As the long train of ages glide away, the sons of men, the youth in life's green spring, and he who goes in the full strength of years, matron and maid, the speechless babe, and the gray-headed man, shall one by one be gathered to thy side by those who in their turn shall follow them. So live, that when thy summons comes to join the innumerable caravan which moves to that mysterious realm where each shall take his chamber in the silent halls of death, thou go not like the quarry slave at night, scourged to his dungeon, but, sustained and soothed by an unfaltering trust, approach thy grave like one who wraps the drapery of his couch about him, and lies down to pleasant dreams. The Yellow Violet. When beechen buds begins to swell, and woods the blue birds warble no, the yellow violet's modest bell peeps from the last year's leaves below. Ere russet fields their green resume, sweet flower I love in forest bare, to meet thee when thy faint perfume alone is in the virgin air. Of all her train, the hands of spring first plant thee in the watery mold, and I have seen the blossoming beside the snow bank's edges cold. Thy parent sun, who bathed thee view, pale skies and chilling moisture sip, has bathed thee in his own bright hue, and streaked with jet thy glowing lip. Yet slight thy form and low thy seat, and earthward bent thy gentle eye, unapt the passing view to meet, when loftier flowers are flaunting nigh. Oft, in the sunless April day, thy early smile has stayed my walk, but midst the gorgeous blooms of May, I passed thee on thy humble stalk. So they who climb to wealth forget the friends in darker fortunes tried. I copy them, but I regret that I should ape the ways of pride. And when again the genial hour awakes the painted tribes of light, I'll not overlook the modest flower that made the woods of April bright. Inscription for the entranced to a wood. Stranger, if thou hast learned a truth which needs no school of long experience, that the world is full of guilt and misery, and hast seen enough of all of its sorrows, crimes, and cares. To tire thee of it, enter this wild wood, and view the haunts of nature. The calm shade shall bring a kindred calm, and the sweet breeze that makes the green leaves dance shall waft a balm to thy sick heart. Thou wilt find nothing here. Of all that painted thee in the haunts of men, and made thee loathe thy life, the primal curse fell. It is true, upon the unsinning earth, but not in vengeance, God hath yoked to guilt her pale tormentor misery. Hence these shades are still the abodes of gladness. The thick roof of green and stirring branches is alive and musical with birds that sing and sport in wantonness of spirit, while below the squirrel, with raised paws and form erect, chirps merrily. Throngs of insects in the shade try their thin wings and dance in the warm beam that walked them into life. Even the green trees partake the deep contentment. As they bend to the soft winds, the sun from the blue sky looks in and sheds a blessing on the scene. Scarce less the cleft-born wildflower seems to enjoy existence than the winged plunderer that sucks its sweets. The mossy rocks themselves and the old and ponderous trunks of prostrate trees that lead from knoll to knoll in causey rood or bridges that sunken brook, and their dark roots with all their earth upon them twisting high, breath-fixed tranquility. The rivulet sends forth glad sounds, and tripping over its bed of pebbly sands, or leaping down the rocks seems, with continuous laughter to rejoice in its own being. Softly tread the marge, lest from her midway perch thou scare the wren that drips her bill in water. The cold wind that stirs the stream in play shall come to thee like one that loves her, nor will let thee pass ungreeted, and shall give its light embrace. Song. Soon as the glazed and gleaming snow reflects the day dawn cold and clear, the hunter of the west must go in the depths of woods to seek the deer. His rifle on his shoulder placed, his stores of death arranged with skill, his moccasins and snowshoes laced, why lingers he beside the hill? Far in the dim and doubtful light, where woody slopes a valley leave, he sees that none but lover might, the dwelling of his Genevieve. And oft he turns his truant eye, and pauses off and lingers near, but when he marks the reddening sky, he bounds away to hunt the deer. To a waterfall. Whither, midst falling dew, while glow the heavens with the last steps of day, far through their rosy depths dost thou pursue thy solitary way? Vainly the fowler's eye might mark thy distant flight to do thee wrong, as darkly seen against the crimson sky, thy figure floats along. Seek'st thou the plashy brink of weedy lake, or merge of river wide, or where the rocking billows rise and sink on the ahafed ocean side? To a waterfall. Whither midst falling dew, while glow the heavens with the last steps of day, far through their rosy depths dost thou pursue thy solitary way? Vainly the fowler's eye might mark thy distant flight to do thee wrong, as darkly seen against the crimson sky, thy figure floats along. Seekest thou the plashy brink of weedy lake, or marsh, or river wide, or where the rocking billows rise and sink on the chafed ocean side? Green River. There is a power whose care teaches thy way along the pathless coast, the desert and illimitable air, lone wandering but not lost. All day thy wings have feigned, at that far height the cold thin atmosphere, yet stood not weary to the welcome land, though the dark night is near. As soon that toil shall end, soon shalt thou find a summer home and rest, and scream among thy fellows, reeds shall bend, soon over thy sheltered nest. Thou art gone, the abyss of heaven hath swallowed up thy form, yet on my heart deeply has sunk the lesson thou hast given, and shall not soon depart. He who from zone to zone guides through the boundless sky thy certain flight, in the long way that I must tread alone, will lead my steps aright. Green River. When breezes are soft and skies are fair, I steal an hour from study and care, and hide me away from the woodland scene, where wanders the stream with waters of green. As if the bright fringe of herbs on its brink had given their strain on the waves they drink, and they whose meadows its murmurs though have named the stream from its own fair hue. Yet pure its waters, its shallows are bright, with colored pebbles and sparkles of light, and clear the depths where its eddies play. Yet pure its waters, its shallows are bright, with colored pebbles and sparkles of light, and clear the depths where its eddies play, and dimpless deepen and whirl away. And the plane tree's speckled arms overshoot the swifter current that minds its route, though through whose shifting leaves, as you walk the hill, the quivering glimmer of sun and rill, with a sudden flash on the eye is thrown, like the ray that streams from the diamond stone. O loveliest, there the spring days come, with blossoms and birds and wild bees hum. The flowers of summer are fairest there, and freshest the breath of the summer air, and sweetest the golden autumn day, and silence and sunshine glides away. Yet fair as thou art, thou shunnest to glide, beautiful stream, by the village side, but windest away from haunts of men, to quiet in valley and shaded glen. And forest and meadow and slope of hill around thee are lonely, lovely and still, lonely save when, by thy ripening tides, from thicket to thicket the angler guides, where the simpler comes with basket and book, for herbs of power on thy banks to look, or haply some idle dreamer like me, to wander and muse and gaze on thee. Still, save the chirp of birds that feed on the river cherry and seedy reed, and thy own wild music gushing out with mellow murmur of fairy shout, from dawn to the blush of another day, like travelers singing along his way. That fairy music I never hear, nor gaze on those waters so green and clear. A Winter Piece. And mark them winding away from sight, darkened with shade or flashing with light, while over them the vine to its thickest clings, and the zephyr stoops to freshen its wings. But I wish that fate had left me free to wander these quiets haunts with thee, till the eating cares of earth should depart, and the peace of the scene pass into my heart. And I envy thy stream as it glides along through its beautiful banks in a trance of song. Though forced to drudge for the dregs of men, and scrawl strange words with the barbarous pen, and mingle among the jostling crowd, were the sons of strife and subtle and loud. I often come to this quiet place, to breathe the airs that ruffle thy face, and gaze upon thee in silent dream, for in thy lonely and lovely stream, an image of that calm life appears, that won my heart in my greener years. A Winter Piece. The time has been that these wild solitudes, yet beautiful as wild, were trod by me oftener than now, and when the ills of life had chafed my spirit, when the unsteady pulse beat with strange flutterings, I would wander forth and seek the woods. The sunshine on my path was to me as a friend. The swelling hills, the quiet dwells, retiring far between, with gentle invitation to explore their windings, or a calm society that talked with me and soothed me. Then the chant of birds and chime of brooks and soft caress of the freshest sylvan air made me forget the thoughts that broke my peace, and I began to gather simples by the fountain's brink, and lose myself in daydreams. While I stood in nature's loneliness, I was with one with whom I early grew familiar, one who had never had a frown for me, whose voice never rebuked me for the hours I stole from cares I loved not, but of which the world deems highest, to converse with her, when shrieked the bleak November winds, and smote the woods, and the brown fields were herbless, and the shades that met above the merry rivulet were spoiled. I loved them still. They seemed like old companions in adversity. Still there was beauty in my walks. The brook, bordered with sparkling frostwork, was as gay as with its fringe of summer flowers. Afar the village with its spires, the path of streams and dim receding valleys, hid before by interposing trees, lay visible through the bare grove, and my familiar haunts seemed new to me. Nor was I allowed to come along then, when the clouds from their still skirts had shaken down on earth the feathery snow, and all was white. The pure, keen air abroad, albeit it breathed no scent of herb, nor heard love call of bird, nor merry hum of bee, was not in the air of death. Bright mosses crept over the spotted trunks, and the close buds that lay along the boughs, instinct with life, patient, and waiting the soft breath of spring, feared not the piercing spirit of the north. The snowbird twittered on the beechen bough, and beneath the hemlock, whose thick branches bent beneath its bright, cold burden, and kept dry a circle on the earth of withered leaves, the partridge found a shelter. Through the snow the rabbit sprang away, the lighter track of fox, and the raccoon's broad path where they're crossing each other. From his hollow tree the squirrel was abroad, gathering the nuts just fallen, that asked the winter cold and sway of winter blast to shake them from their hold. But winter has yet brighter senses. He boasts splendors beyond what gorgeous summer knows, or autumn with his many fruits, and woods all flushed with many hues. Come when the rains have glazed the snow and clothed the trees with ice, while the slant sun of February pours into the bowers a flood of light. Approach. The encrusted surface shall upbear thy steps, and the broad arching portals of the grove welcome thy entering. Look, the massy trunks are cased in the pure crystal. Each light spray, nodding and tingling in the breath of heaven, is studded with its trembling water drops, that glimmer with an amethystine light. But round the parent stem the long low boughs bend in a glittering ring, and arbors hide thy glassy floor. Oh, you might deem the spot the spacious cavern of some virgin mine, deep in the womb of earth where the gems grow, and diamonds put forth radiant rods and bud with amethyst and topaz, and the place lit up most royally, with the pure beam that dwells in them, or haply the vast hall of fairy palace, that outlasts the night and fades not in the glory of the sun, where crystal columns set forth slender shafts and crossing arches, and fantastic aisles wind from the sight of brightness, and are lost among the crowded pillars. Raise thine eye, thou seest no cavern roof, no palace vault. There the blue sky and the white drifting cloud look in. Again in the wildered fancy dreams of spouting fountains, frozen as they rose. All fixed with all their branching jets in air, and all their sluices sealed, all is light. Light without shade, but all shall pass away. With the next sun, from numberless vast trunks loosened, the crashing ice shall make a sound like the far roar of rivers, and the eve shall close over the brown woods as it was wont. And it's pleasant when the noisy streams are just set free, the milder suns melt off the plashy snow, save only the firm drift in the last deep glen, or the close shade of pines. 'Tis pleasant to behold the wreaths of smoke roll up among the maples of the hill, where the shrill sound of youthful voices wake the chiller echo, and the clear pure lymph that from the wounded trees in twinkling drop falls, mid the golden brightness of the morn, is gathered in with brimming pails, and oft wielded by sturdy hands. The stroke of axe makes the woods ring. Along with quiet air, come and float calmly off the soft light clouds, such as you see in summer, and the winds scarce stir the branches. Lodged in sunny cleft where the cold breezes come not, blooms alone the little wind flower, whose just opened eye is blue, and the spring heaven it gazes at, startling the loiterer in the naked groves with unexpected beauty, for the time of blossoms and green leaves is yet afar. And ere it comes, the encountering winds shall oft muster their wrath again, and rapid clouds shade heaven, and bounding on the frozen earth shall fall their volleyed shores, rounded like hail and white like snow, and the loud north again shall buffet the vexed forests in his rage. The West Wind. Beneath the forest skirt I rest, whose branching pines rise dark and high, and hear the breezes of the west among the thread like foliage sigh. Sweet Zephyr, why that sound of woe? Is not thy home among the flowers? Do not the bright June roses blow to meet thy kiss at morning hours? And lo, thy glorious realm outspread, yon stretching valleys green and gray, and yon free hilltops over whose head the loose white clouds are borne away. And there the full broad river runs, and many a fount wells fresh and sweet, to cool thee when the midday suns have made thee faint beneath their heat. Thou winds of joy and youth and love, spirit of the new wakened year, the sun in his blue realm above smooths a bright path when thou art here. In lawns the murmuring bee is heard, the wooing ring dove in the shade. On thy soft breath the new-fledged bird takes wing, half happy, half afraid. Ah, thou art like our wayward race, when not a shade of pain or ill dims the brightness smile of nature's face. Thou loves to sign and murmur still. The Burial Place. A fragment. Erewhile, on England's pleasant shores, our sires left not their churchyards unadorned with shades, or blossoms but indulgent to the strong, and natural dread of man's last home the grave. Its frost and silence they disposed around, to soothe the melancholy spirit that dwelt too sadly on life's close, the forms and hues of vegetable beauty. There the yew green ever made the snows of winter, told of immortality, and gracefully the willow, a perpetual mourner, drooped, and there the gaiting woodbine crept about, and there the ancient ivy from the spot where the sweet maiden in her blossoming years, cut off, was laid with streaming eyes and hands that trembled as they placed her there. The rose sprung modest and bowed stalk, and better spoke her graces than the proudest monument. Their children set about their playmate's grave, the pansy, on their infant's little bed, wet at its planting with maternal tears, emblem of early sweetness, early death. Nestled the lonely primrose, the childless dames and maids that would not raise the reddened eye. Orphans from those young lids, the light of joy, fled early, silent lovers, who had given all that they lived for to the arms of earth, came often over the recent graves to strew their offerings rue and rosemary and flowers. The pilgrim bands who passed the sea to keep their Sabbaths in the eye of God alone, in his wide temple of the wilderness, brought not these simple customs of the heart. Blessed are they that mourn. With them, it might be while they laid their dread by the vast solemn skirts of the old groves, and the fresh virgin soil poured forth strange flowers about their graves, and the familiar shades of their own native isle, and wonted blooms and herbs were wanting, which the pious hand might plant or scatter there. These gentle rites passed out of use. Now they are scarcely known, and rarely in our borders may you meet the tall larch, sighing in the burial place, or willow, trailing low its boughs to hide the gleaming marble. Naked rows of graves and melancholy ranks of monuments are seen instead, where the coarse grass between shoots up its dull green spikes, and in the wind hisses, and the neglected bramble nigh offers its berries to the schoolboy's hand. In vain they grow too near the dead, yet here nature rebuking the neglect of man. Plants often by the ancient mossy stone, briar rose, and upon the broken turf that close the fresher grave, the strawberry plant sprinkles its swell with blossoms, and lays forth her ruddy, pouting fruit. Blessed are they that mourn. O deem not they are blessed alone, whose lives a peaceful tenor keep. The power who pities man hath shown a blessing for the eyes that weep. The light of smiles shall fill again the lids that overflow with tears. In weary hours of woe and pain are promises of happier years. There is a day of sunny rest for every dark and troubled night, and grief may bide an evening guest, but joy shall come with early light. And thou, whoever thy friends low bear, dost shed the bitter drops like rain, hope that a brighter, happier sphere will give him to thy arms again. Nor let the good man's trust depart, though life its common gifts deny, though with a pierced and bleeding heart, and spurned of men he goes to die. For God hath marked each sorrowing day, and numbered every secret tear, and heavens long ago of bliss shall pay, for all of his children suffer here. No man knoweth his sepulchre. When he who, from the scourge of wrong, aroused the Hebrew tribes to fly, saw the fair region promised long, and bowed him on the hills to die, God made his grave to men unknown, where Moab's rocks a veil enfold, and laid the air seer alone, to slumber while the world grows old. Thus still, whenever the goods and just close the dim eye on life and pain, heaven watches over their sleeping dust, till the pure spirit comes again. A walk at sunset. Though nameless, trampled, and forgot, his servants' humble ashes lie, yet God hath marked and sealed the spot, to call its inmate to the sky. When insect wings are glistening in the beam of the low sun and mountain tops are bright, oh, let me by the crystal valley stream wander amid the mild and mellow light. And while the wood thrush pipes his evening lay, give me one lowly hour to hymn the setting day. O sun, that over the western mountains now goest down in glory ever beautiful, and blessed is thy radiance whenever thou colorest the eastern heaven and night midst cool, till the bright day star vanish or on high climbest and streamest thy white splendors from mid-sky. Yet loveliest are thy setting smiles and fair, fairest of all that earth beholds, the hues that live among the clouds and flush in air. Lingering the deepening at the hour of dews, the softest gales are breathed, the softest heard, the planning voice of streams and pensive note of bird. They who were roamed for yore the forest wide felt by such charm their simple bosoms won. They deemed their quivered warriors when he died, when to bright isles beneath the setting sun. They who here roamed of yore the forest wide felt by such charm their simple bosoms won. They deemed their quivered warrior when he died, went to bright isles beneath the setting sun, where winds are at peace and skies are fair, and purple-skirted clouds curtain the crimson air. So, with the glories of the dying day, its thousand trembling lights and changing hues, the memory of the brave who passed away, tenderly mingled, fitting hour to muse. One such grave theme and sweet the dream that shed brightness and beauty round the destiny of the dead. For ages on the silent forest here, thy beams did fall before the red man came, to dwell beneath them in their shade to deer, fed and feared not the arrow's deadly aim. Nor tree was felled in all that world of woods, saved by the beaver's tooth or winds or rush of floods. Then came the hunters' tribes, and thou didst look for ages on their deeds in the hard chase, and well-fought wars, green sod and silver brook, took the first stain of blood before thy face. The warrior generations came and passed, and glory was laid up for many an age to last. Now they are gone, gone as thy setting blaze, gone down the west, while night is pressing on, and with them the old tale of better days, and trophies of remembered power are gone. Yon field that give the harvest, where the plough strikes the white bone, is all that tells their story now. I stand upon their ashes in thy heme, the offspring of another race I stand, beside a stream they loved, this valley stream, and where the night fire of the quivered land showered the grey oak by fits, and war song rung I teach the quiet shades the strains of this new tongue. Farewell, but thou shalt come again. Thy light must shine on others, changes the behold. The place of the thronged city still as night, states fallen, new empires built upon the old. But never shalt thou see these realms again, darkened by boundless groves, are roamed by savage men. Hymn to Death. Oh, could I hope the wise and pure in heart might hear my song without a frown, nor deem my voice unworthy of the theme it tries? I would take up the hymn of death, and say to the grim power, the world hath slandered thee and mocked thee. On thy dim and shadowy brow they place an iron crown, and call thee king of terrors, and the spoiler of the world, deadly assassins that strikest down the fair, the loved, the good, that breakfast on the lights of virtue set along the value of life. And they go out in darkness. I am come not with reproaches, not with cries and prayers, such as have stormed thy stern and sensible ear from the beginning. I am come to speak thy praises. True it is that I have wept thy conquests, and may weep them yet again. And thou from some I love wilt take a life, dear to me as my own. Yet while the spell is on my spirit, and I talk with thee in sight of all thy trophies face to face, meet is that with my voice should utter forth thy nobler triumphs. I will teach the world to thank thee. Who are thine accusers? Who? The living, they who never felt thy power and know thee not. The curses of the wretch whose crimes are ripe, his sufferings when thy hand is on him and the hour he dreads is come, are writ among thy praises. But the good? Does he whom thy kind hand dismissed to peace upbraid the gentle violence that took off his fetters and unbarred his prison cell? Raise then the hymn to death. Deliver! God hath anointed thee to free the oppressed and crush the oppressor. When the armed chief, the conqueror of nations, walks the world, and it changed beneath his feet, and all its kingdoms melt into one mighty realm. Though, while his head is loftiest and his heart blasphemes, imagining his own right hand almighty, thou dost that set thy sudden grasp upon him, and the links of that strong chain which bound mankind are crumbled. Thou dost break scepter and crown, and beat his throne to dust. Then the earth shouts with gladness, and her tribes gather within their ancient bounds again. Else had the mighty of the olden time, Nimrod, Sesostris, or the youth who feigned his birth from Libyan Ammon, smitten yet the nations with a rod of iron, and driven their chariot over their necks. Thou dost avenge, in thy good time, the wrongs of those who knew no other friend, nor dost thou interpose only to lay the sufferer asleep, where he who made him wretched troubles not his rest. Thou dost strike down this tyrant too. Oh, there is joy when hands that held the scourge drops lifeless, and the pitiless heart is cold. Thou too dost purge from earth its horrible and old idolatries, from the bound from the proud fanes, each to give grave their priests go out, till none is left to teach their worship. Then the fires of sacrifice are chilled, and the green moss overcreeps their altars. The fallen images cumber the weedy courts, and forlorn hymns chanted by kneeling multitudes. The wind shrieks in the solitary aisles, when he who gives his life to guilt and laughs at all the laws that God or man has made, and round hedges with seat with power. And round hedges his seat with power, and shines in wealth, lifts up his atheist front to scoff at heaven, and celebrated his shame in open day, though, in the pride of all his crimes, cuttest off the horrible example. Touched by thine, the extortioner's hard hand forgoes the gold wrung from the overworn poor. The perjurer whose tongue was lithe, even now, and voluble against his neighbor's life, and he who laughed and leaped for joy to see a spotless fame blasted before his own foul calumnies are smit with deadly silence. He who sold his conscience to preserve a worthless life, even while he hugs himself on his escape, trembles as doubly terrible at length thy steps overtake him, and there is no time for parley, nor will bribes unclench thy grasp. Often, too, dost thou reform thy victim, long ere his last hour. And when the reveller, mad in the chase of pleasure, stretches on and strains each nerve and clears the path of life like wind, thou pointest him to the dreadful goal that shakest thy hourglass in his reeling eye, and checks him in mid-course. Thy skeleton hand shows to the faint of spirit the right path, and he is warned and fears to step aside. Thou settest between the ruffian and his crime, thy ghastly countenance, and his slack hand drops the drawn knife. But oh, most fearfully dost thou show forth heaven's justice, when thy shafts drink up the ebbing spirit, when the hard of heart and violent of hand restores the treasures of the friendless wretch he wronged. Then from the writhing bosom thou dost pluck the guilty secret. Lips for ages sealed are faithless to their dreadful trust at length, and give it up. The felon's latest breath absolves the innocent man who bears his crime. The slanderer, horror-smitten and in tears, recalls the deadly obloquy he forged to work his brother's ruin. Thou dost make thy Pentian victim utter to the air the dark conspiracy that strikes at life, and aims to whelm the laws, ere yet the hour is come and the dread sign of murder given. Thus from the first time hast thou been found on virtue's side. The wicked, but for thee, had been too strong for the good. The great of earth had crushed the weak forever, schooled in guile for ages, while each passing tear had brought a baneful lesson. They had filled the world with their abominations, while its tribes, trodden to earth, imbruted, and despoiled, had knelt to them in worship. Sacrifice had smoked on many an altar. Temple roofs had echoed with the blasphemous prayer and hymn. But thou, the great reformer of the world, in their green pupillage, their lore half learned, ere guilt had quite overrun the simple heart, God gave them at their birth, blotted out his image. Thou dost mark them flushed with hope, as on the threshold of their vast designs, doubtful and loose they stand, and strikest them down. Alas! I little thought that the stern power whose fearful praise I sang would try me thus before the strain was ended. It might cease, for he is in his grave who taught my youth the art of verse, and in the bud of life offered me to the muses. O cut off untimely, when thy reason in its strength, ripened by years of toil and studious search and watch of nature's silent lessons, taught thy hand to practice best the lenient art to which thou gravest thy laborious days, and last thy life. And therefore, when the earth received thee, tears were in unyielding eyes, and on hard cheeks, and they who deemed thy skill delayed their death hour, shuddered and turned pale when thou wert gone. This faltering verse, which thou shalt not, as wont, overlook, is all I have. This faltering verse, which thou shalt not, at wont, overlook, is all I have to offer at thy grave. This, and the hope to copy thy example, and to leave a name of which the wretched shall not think as of an enemy's, whom they forgive, as all forgive the dead. Rest, therefore, thou whose early guidance trained my infant steps, rest in the bosom of God, till the brief sleep of death is over, and a happier life shall dawn to waken thine insensible dust. Now thou art not, and yet the man whose guilt has wearied heaven for vengeance. He who bears false witness, he who takes the orphan's bread, and robs the widow, he who spreads abroad polluted hands in mockery of prayer, and are left to cumber earth. Shuddering I look on what is written, yet I blot not out the desultory numbers. Let them stand, the record of an idle reverie. The Massacre at Schio. Weep not for Schio's children slain, their blood, by Turkish falchions shed, sends not its cry to heaven in vain, for vengeance on the murderer's head. Though high the warm red torrent ran, between the flames that lit the sky, yet for each drop an armed man shall rise to free the land or die, and for each corpse that is in the sea was thrown to feast the scaly herds, 100 of the foe shall be a banquet for the mountain birds. Stern rites and sad shall Greece ordain to keep that day along her shore, till the last link of slavery's chain is shattered, to be worn no more. The Indian Girl's Lament. An Indian girl was sitting where her lover, slain in battle, slept. Her maiden veil, her own black hair, came down over her eyes that wept, and wildly in her woodland tongue this sad and simply lay she sung. I've pulled away the shrubs that grew too close above thy sleeping head, and broke the forest boughs that threw their shadows over thy bed, that, shining from the sweet southwest, the sunbeams might rejoice thy rest. It was a weary, weary road that led thee to the pleasant coast, where thou in his serene abode hast met thy father's ghost, where everlasting autumn lies on yellow woods and sunny skies. 'Twas I the broidered motions made that shod thee for that distant land. 'Twas I thy bow and arrows laid beside thy still cold hand. Thy bow in many a battle bent, thy arrows never vainly sent. With wampum belts I crossed thy breast, and wrapped thee in the bison's hide, and laid the food that pleased the beast in plenty by the side, and decked thee bravely as became a warrior of illustrious name. Thou art happy now, for thou hast passed the long dark journey of the grave, and in the land of light at last hast joined the good and brave. Amidst the flushed and balmy air, the bravest and the loveliest there. Yet oft to thine own Indian maid, even there thy thoughts will earthward stray, to her who sits where thou wert laid, and weeps the hours away, yet almost can hear her grief forget, to think that thou dost love her yet. And thou by one of those still lakes that in a shining cluster lie, on which the south wind scarcely breaks the image of the sky. A bower for thee and me hast made beneath the many-colored shade, and thou dost wait and watch to meet my spirit sent to join the blest, and wondering what detains my feet from that bright land of rest, dost seem in every sound to hear the rustling of my footsteps near. Okay, so that concludes part one of this series of narrating an entire body of work of a very smart man who spent his entire life dedicated to poetry. So I feel it is only another unexplored achievement for me to audibly share his poems with the world. This was a massive undertaking. It was a lot more taxing than I was expecting it to be. I had to take a couple breaks and drink some water. And I do need a pretty big correction to make. If early on in some of the poems where I said the title twice, it was because for some reason they showed the title of the poem when the page started, and also when the actual poem started on the same page, which doesn't really make that much sense at all. And I guess my autistic brain took that literally, and unfortunately I said some of the titles twice, so that is my biggest falter in this performance, and that I will improve again when I keep doing this. If you made it this far, thank you and I love you, and I sincerely hope that you either enjoyed this, learned from it, or found inspiration from it, which the latter, the third one, is what I really am hoping for. So thank you so much for tuning in, and I will see you again.